Good evening. Now we're good. Well, I want to thank you all for your attentiveness and hanging in there all day long. I'm very impressed. You know, usually in America they're gone by now. So this meeting is very, very important. In fact, I talked to my good friend Dennis Crystal and I asked him if he mind if we switched our meetings tonight. So if you look at the schedule, you'll notice that he was actually supposed to speak this one and I was supposed to speak the last one. But this meeting is very, very important and one of the most important presentations I give at our Lifestyle Center because it really gets to the heart of the matter, and I think it's going to touch some of you here tonight. And I put it together because I was looking for answers myself. I write a lot of sermons for myself as well as for others because I'm looking for answers too. So I want to begin tonight and just share with you, are drugs the answer? The science of biologic basis of health and disease, pathophysiology, has far surpassed the science of emotions, which is called psychology. And today, despite the overwhelming evidence, medical science mostly ignores the mind-body connection. Today's drug-oriented medicine seeks to find the magic drug to miraculously cure all our diseases. And I ask the question, is this the true answer? That we're going to solve all the problems if we can find another magic drug. Well, I found this statement, and it's one of the most profound things I've ever read, and it says that sickness of the mind prevails everywhere. 9/10 of the diseases from which men suffer have their foundation here. Now, I've been working in the medical missionary work for 20-something years. I've had my own wellness health retreat for 7 years, and I used to read this statement and say, is it true that of the 9 people that I have in this room, or the 10 people that are sitting in this room, that 9 of them's problems originate in their mind and not in their body? That's 9 out of 10. And this is a statement written in the book Mind, Character, and Personality. So let's look at some science here in a minute. In the 1940s, Harvard physiologist Walter Cannon investigated deaths by voodoo and concluded that humans could indeed die from the fatal power of the imagination, working through the unmitigated terror of the voodoo curse. So that tells you just because of their fear in their mind, it could cause death, physical death. Here was a newspaper that came out, the Sacramento Bee. That's the capital of California, by the way, Sacramento. And it says, the mind-body care now in the mainstream of cancer treatment. So even in the major hospitals of our country, they're starting to look at the connection between the mind and the body. Here was a book I read called Mind is Healer, Mind is Slayer, and discovered the life-death link between stress and serious disease. And it says that psychoneuroimmunology is new, but research is highly consistent with the idea that there is an inextricable interaction between the mind and the body at the heart of health and the heart of death. So psychoneuroimmunology is the study of the interactions of the emotions and behaviors and how they affect the endocrine and the immune system. In other words, these systems communicate with each other. Our psychological state, the way we choose to respond to stress in our individual lives, creates a central nervous system response, which is an electrical response, an endocrine response, which is a hormonal response, and a behavior change. This may result in an immune system change that causes disease susceptibility. So what that's saying is that your state of mind may affect your body's reacting or symptoms developing associated with some type of disease. So we read in 1981 that Dr. David Felton, using special fluorescent strains to trace nerves to various bodily locations, including bone marrow, lymph nodes, and the spleen, that the Felton team had discovered a network of nerves leading to blood vessels as well as cells of the immune system. The researchers also found nerves in the thymus and spleen terminating near clusters of lymphocytes, macrophages, and mast cells, all of which help control immune function. There it was, the mind-body connection, clear evidence that the brain has the ability to send signals to immune system cells. And here's an illustration that I like, and it says when a person is confronted with a stressful situation, such as an angry dog, a complex series of neurogenic and humoral reactions are set in motion as the total organism responds, as illustrated by the drawing. So the heartbeat can speed up, the respiration can speed up, your blood circulation can speed up or decrease, adrenaline's poured out. So there's an emergency response that causes off a number of reactions within the human body. Dennis talked about this last night, about the synapse, talking about the dendrites, talking about the cells and the body's ability to communicate. And here's the interesting thing. My mind says right now, move your fourth finger. And my body's sending that electrical charge of a thought that has a physical manifestation. So here's a cool one that I found, a little spark of thought, traveling at many miles per hour from one cell to another, that when my mind says smile, my lips react. So, when we become sick, let's read the top part first. Negative lifestyle habits and negative thoughts and emotions contribute to disease and death through immune dysfunction. And it says, when we become sick, we begin to ask why. The most common response is to blame God, to blame someone else, or something else for our suffering. We must consider that our wrong lifestyle practices and our negative attitudes, thoughts, and emotions play a major role in sickness and disease. And research has demonstrated that just 6 minutes of a negative emotion can suppress the immune system for more than 21 hours. Okay, do I have your attention now? This is a serious topic. I believe that once we realize the information that I'm going to share with you tonight, it's going to impact your life in a profound way. It's going to impact your way of healing and working with other people that are filled with sickness and disease. See, I look at people now that may not be able to walk very well, somebody that may have an immune suppression going on, somebody with cancer, and I don't necessarily look at the way he's eating anymore. I look at the way he's thinking. I look at the pain and the suffering that he's hiding underneath the mask of a smile on his face, realizing that maybe there's something far deeper contributing to this symptom and this disease than just he's not eating a vegan diet. So, our attitudes affect our health in profound ways, and through the years we found that the following states of mind are injurious to the chemical and the electrical balance of the body because of their emotional potential. Anger, discontent, unhappiness, overexcitement, anxiety, fear, remorse, guilt, distrust, and selfishness tear down the life force within the human body. And it says again, sickness of the mind prevails everywhere. 9/10 of the diseases from which men suffer have their foundation here. So negative emotions can influence even cancer and diabetes, they're finding today. So Dr. Felton showed that these nerve connections can influence the onset and course of cancer, infectious disease, including retroviral infections, autoimmune disease such as rheumatoid arthritis, and age-related decline in immune responses. In 1974, a colleague, Dr. Robert Adder, an experimental psychologist, said that diabetes, traditionally considered to be a disease of the endocrine system, is now looked on as an autoimmune disorder, an immune system attacking itself. So I see that diabetes in U.S. citizens in our country is increasing at enormous rates. Is it just because of diet, or is it possibly because of the stress and a weakened immune system within the body? So, specific patterns of thoughts and behaviors are associated with certain diseases. In some types of cancer, PMS, premenstrual syndrome, can be specific bitterness. And this one makes so much sense. Look at this now, and I want to challenge you because so many of us are suffering with autoimmune diseases. What does this sentence say? Autoimmune diseases can be associated with self-hatred. Did you ever think about that? Your body's attacking itself because as we attack ourselves with our own words, our own thoughts or actions, we see a corresponding autoimmune response resulting in an autoimmune disease. In other words, certain negative emotions cause the body to produce specific antibodies that will only attack a specific organ or cell in the body. So Dr. John Diamond, MD, co-author of Definitive Guide to Cancer, observed that repressed emotions, if not vented or expressed, will seek physical expression, such as functional bowel disease, fibromyalgia, or even cancer. So I remember from one of the men I learned from, Dr. Richard Schultz, I remember that he would go to people's houses that were suffering with migraine headaches, autoimmune disorders, even cancer, and he'd go to their home to look around and see if he could see something that might be causing their disease. He didn't look in their refrigerator. He looked around, and one day he was sitting in one lady's house who had a breast cancer, and he's sitting there and he's looking and he's saying, okay, I'm going to play a game with you. And if I'm getting close to something that might be contributing to your disease, I want you to tell me I'm getting warm. And if I get closer to it, I want you to tell me I'm getting hot. So he sees a jar that looks like a jar of cotton on her mantle above her fireplace. And he says, what's that? And she goes, oh, never mind. What is this? Don't touch it. And he goes, what's this cotton doing in a jar on her mantle? And she's got breast cancer. And she's telling me don't touch it. And he's thinking, there's an association going on here. So he finally says, what is this? And she says, oh, that's the hair from my poodle dog that died many years ago, and I keep it there in the jar because I miss the dog so much. And he said, bingo. How badly do you want to get well? Because you're not letting go of repressed emotions, specifically grief. She's grieving herself into disease. So he says, we got to get rid of this. He said he had another one, that he was walking around the house wondering what could be causing her migraine headaches. And there's a door locked and he can't get into the room. Can I get into here? No. Why? Open the door. That's my daughter's room who died 16 years ago, and I haven't opened the door since she's died. Okay, what I want to say by this is that your emotions, your negative attitudes, your repressed emotions, the ones you hold inside that you can't vent when you're mad at your husband or you really don't like him too much anymore, and you just hold it all in and smile at him, you know what you're doing? That repressed emotion is going to find expression even if it becomes a lump on your breast. It's trying to come out. Pretty heavy, isn't it? So now when I do Bella Vita Lifestyle Center, I start thinking about the people that come with cancer, and I find a consistency within them all. And you're going to learn tonight what type of negative emotions affect what type of diseases. In the 1800s, one woman who was way ahead of her time wrote in a book called Healthful Living. Look what she said. Every organ of the body was to be made servant of the mind. Did you get that? Does that mean my thymus is supposed to be servant to my mind? Every organ of the body, my liver, my kidneys, she's talking about is connected to your mind. Now listen. It says, the brain is the capital of the body, the seat of the nervous forces and of mental action, and the nerves that proceed from the brain control the body. So by the brain nerves, mental impressions, here we go again, spark the thought, move the fingers, smile the face. Mental impressions are conveyed to all the nerves of the body like telegraph wires. And they control the vital action of every part of the system. All the organs of motion are governed by the communication that they receive from the brain. Now, did you grow up where your father told you you're no good, you'll never amount to nothing, anything? You're a loser. I don't love you. How about a broken home where you saw your father beat your mother? How about a molestation where your uncle took advantage of you sexually? Are any of those emotions buried deep within you right now? And then you have arthritic symptoms and you're wondering why, or maybe I need more flaxseed oil? So, anger is the negative emotion that causes problems with the liver. Bitterness, the gallbladder. Grief and sadness, the heart, a broken heart. How about vulnerability, feelings of rejection or abandonment, the small intestine, inflexibility, defensiveness, the large intestine, low self-esteem, feeling of rejection, the spleen and the pancreas, fear and terror, the kidneys, timidity and irritation, the bladder, and confusion, the thyroid and the adrenals. I had a lady in her 30s who came to Bella Vita, and she had pancreatic cancer and liver cancer. And I wanted to see if this is true. And here she was, she couldn't eat anything. They had her on morphine. They had her on a drip when she got to Bella Vita. And I went into her room one day, and I said to her, "How are you?" And she said, "I'm okay." And I was looking for the key. Okay, was it she doesn't juice, she doesn't exercise, she doesn't eat enough of fibrous, phytochemical-rich food, or was there something else? And I gave this presentation on night 2. Usually I don't give it to about night 3 or 4. And the night I gave it, her mother and her father were sitting there on my couch. And after I finished this presentation, the parents came to me, the mother specifically, and said to me, "Danny, can I talk to you?" I said, "Sure." Here's my daughter in there at 32 years old with pancreatic cancer and liver cancer. My husband's an alcoholic, and he beat me really good. And I, as a consequence, took it out on my children and beat them really good, and she got it the worst. Pancreatic cancer, low self-esteem, and feelings of rejection. You know, if you're beating a kid, isn't that, say, rejection? And then I got down on my knees. Here, let me illustrate. I got on my knees while she was doing an enema. I was trying to get food into her rectally. Juice the carrots, juice the spinach, juice the celeries, put it in an enema bag. I got to try to get her nutrients through the large intestine. She couldn't eat a thing. She wouldn't keep anything down. And I said, "Cover her with a blanket. I'm going to go in there. I got to talk to her." And I got right down on the ground, and I looked her straight in the eyes. And I said to her, "Have you forgiven your father?" And she said, "I think so." "Have you forgiven your mother?" "No. I'm very angry and bitter at my mom. And you're here for liver cancer and pancreatic cancer at 32 years old. What is it that somebody does at 30 or 32 years old that sets them up for disease, advanced chronic terminal disease in the liver and the pancreas? something's drastically draining the life current to those organs. And if the mind's connected to every organ of the body, then these negative motions specifically are the ones that are attacking that specific body organ. Isn't that heavy? So I got on my knees and I said, do you know Jesus? And she says, no, I don't. I know Mary. I said, I was Catholic too. And I understand your statement about Mary. So I got down on my knees. I got my eye to eye with her, and I said, I'm going to teach you something today. Is that all right? She says, Danny, do whatever you want. And I opened up to Isaiah 53, and I said, he is despised and rejected, a man of sorrows, and acquainted with grief. Did you see that? An emotional pain. Grief. See, Jesus didn't die just because of all of our sins, but he died for our emotional pain too. The things we suffer in our mind. And so he's acquainted with grief. He carried our sorrows. He was wounded for our transgressions. And I read her this whole thing. He was oppressed. And she goes, how do I pray to Jesus? And I said, well, you don't say, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. You do it this way. You talk to him as a friend. Because Jesus loves you, and Jesus is the one who died, and Jesus is your mediator. And so I left, and I had to take the class to the gym and work out and whatnot. And when I came back, I walked into her room, and you know what? She was smiling. And she looked at me and said, I've been talking to Jesus all day long. And Danny, when I get to heaven, I'm going to look for you. Thank you for teaching me about Jesus. And then I kept working with her, and I knew she was going to die. I knew there wasn't anything I could do for her physically, but there was a lot that was happening emotionally and spiritually. So she came there to find Christ and salvation, maybe lose her life, but not eternally. So you never know when you're working with a patient exactly the role that you're going to have in that patient's life. So I looked at her and I said, she's going to die here. I can see it. She's not eating. She can't get any food down. She can't keep it down. But we got her to a place now where she's finding Christ. And so I said, Lord, I don't want her to die here at my house. What can we do? And you know, God works in wonderful ways. I left the room. I came back later and they said, she wants to talk to you again. And I walked in and she goes, can I ask you a favor? I go, sure, honey, you can ask me anything you want. It's my daughter's birthday tomorrow. Can I go home so I can be with her? And I said, I think that can be arranged. Now, here's the beautiful end of the story. She didn't make it. She swelled up in a couple of weeks, and she died. But here's the mother. Calls me up on the phone and says, can I come see you? And I said, sure. And you always wonder, what did you do for my daughter? She paid this money and came to your place, and she's dead in 2 weeks. It's never happened that way. You know what her mother came and told me? She says, I need to tell you something. My daughter found salvation at Bella Vita. She forgave me for everything I had done to her. And I'm going to teach you a principle tonight that's one of the highest things that I can teach you people, and I teach everybody that I go to. Here's one of the greatest lessons I've ever learned in life. By love is love awakened. Okay, so I want to talk to you tonight and myself about deep emotional pain, because many of us in this room are suffering right now. It may not be open sin that we're committing, but maybe there's some negative emotions, maybe to your father, maybe to the man who raped you, maybe to your ex-husband, maybe to a brother or a sister that you're holding on to because you've been hurt. And I want to go there tonight. So she died, but she found forgiveness in her heart to let her mother let her off the hook. And the mother in return broke down and kissed her baby girl and said, I need to ask you forgiveness. She said, Danny, we healed before her death. Now, could you imagine her dying with anger and bitterness in her heart? So let's study now. Negative emotions can cause inflammation and disease. Just realize this. It's not necessarily the fact that you're not exercising or not eating right or not doing enough juices or not doing liver flushing and colon cleansing. It may be that you are just causing inflammation and disease because of your attitude. The Bible says, as a man thinketh, so is he. So there is excellent evidence that negative emotions such as depression and anxiety enhance the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines, including interleukin-6, pro-inflammatory agents that cause pain and inflammation because of your attitude. And then it says, pro-inflammatory cytokines are hormonal components, create inflammation or swelling in many parts of the body. Inflammation has recently been linked to what? Even cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis, arthritis, type 2 diabetes, certain cancers, including multiple myeloma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, chronic lymphocytic leukemia, Alzheimer's disease, and even periodontal disease. So Ellen White said in Ministry of Healing, page 241, the relation that exists between the mind and the body is very intimate. When one is affected, the other sympathizes. The condition of the mind affects the health to a far greater degree than many realize. Many of the diseases from which men suffer are the result of mental depression, grief, she says, anxiety, discontent, remorse, guilt, distrust, all tend to break down the life forces and to invite decay or death. So we find that God, according to her, she says when one organ is injured, how many are affected? All of them. All of them. Let me read this. God has endowed us with a certain amount of vital force. When I use the word vital force, that word is synonymous with life force, which is synonymous with electrical charge. So God, when he breathed into your nostrils the breath of life, also established within you an electrical producing mechanism within you that is programmed to wellness. You have electrical current in your body. If you look at your blood cells under a microscope, there is a glow of light around them. If you take an apple and take a picture with Kirlian photography, there's a glow of light around an apple, but if you cook it, it's dead, no glow. So God made you a living organism with electrical current and electrical charge. And your heart is beating right now, not plugged into an electrical socket. So God is the sustainer, the founder, and the sustainer of all life. Now watch. It says he has formed us with organs suited to maintain the various functions of life, and he designs that these organs shall work together in harmony. If we carefully preserve the life force, isn't that a heavy statement? And keep the delicate mechanism of the body in order, the result is health. But if the vital force is too rapidly exhausted, the nervous system borrows power for the present use from its resources of strength, and when one organ is injured, they all suffer. Now, I thought